Patricia Langford sees a well-dressed black man in first class and assumes he doesn't belong. Another mistake to correct. But what she doesn't know, he's Agent Stokes, an FBI officer with more authority than her carefully polished title ever held. Stick around, because when the cameras roll and first-class Karen ignites, Patricia's name won't open doors. It'll close them. Justice isn't just coming for her reputation, it's coming for her empire. Share with us your location and what time it is there. We love connecting with our global audience. Patricia Langford's Gucci heels clicked against the airplane floor like a metronome counting down to disaster. The crisp designer suit and pearl necklace, carefully chosen symbols of her status as executive director of the Marston Foundation, felt like armor as she stood in the first-class aisle, boarding pass raised like a shield. The man in 2A couldn't possibly belong there. Not in her world. Not in first class. "There must be some mistake," Patricia Langford announced, her voice carrying that precise tone of authority she'd perfected over 2 decades of board meetings. "I always have this row. Perhaps you're meant to be—" Her manicured hand gestured vaguely toward economy class, the implication clear as crystal. The quiet clicking of phone cameras barely registered in her consciousness. Patricia Langford was accustomed to commanding rooms, to being obeyed. The badge on his carry-on, she refused to believe it was real, just like she refused to acknowledge the growing murmur of disapproval from other passengers. "I can have the flight attendant verify your seat assignment," Patricia Langford offered, with what she considered generous condescension. The Marston Foundation pin on her lapel caught the overhead light, a symbol of power she'd wielded like a weapon for years. She polished it absently with her thumb, a habit born of pride. The man's calm response, producing his credentials and flight documentation, sent an unfamiliar ripple of unease through her perfectly maintained composure. FBI. The letters struck like hammer blows against her certainty. "Ma'am, I'm Agent Stokes, and this is my assigned seat." His voice carried none of the deference she expected. Worse, she caught the flight attendant's expression, not apologetic, but appalled. At her. The first tremor of doubt cracked her foundation as phones kept recording. Patricia Langford's world had always bent to her will, until now. A young woman across the aisle whispered something about going viral, and for the first time in years, Patricia felt her control slipping. "Do you know who I am?" The words escaped before she could stop them, echoing with entitled fury. "I'm Patricia Langford, executive director of the Marston Foundation. We don't make mistakes about seating assignments." The flight attendant's voice cut through her indignation. "Ms. Langford, your assigned seat is 4C. I can show you to it now." Patricia Langford's hands trembled as she clutched her Marston Foundation pin. The cameras were still rolling. The disapproving murmurs had grown louder. And somewhere in the digital ether, first class. Karen was taking its first breath. Have you ever felt your power crumbling? The thought invaded her mind as she stood there, her designer armor suddenly feeling like paper-thin pretense. Have you ever watched your carefully constructed world start to unravel in real time? Forced to retreat to 4C, Patricia Langford missed the knowing glances exchanged between other passengers. She didn't see her carefully curated image dissolving with every share and retweet. But she felt it. The first tremors of an earthquake about to shatter her foundation. Drop 1 in the comments if you've ever seen someone's power trip come crashing down. The Marston Foundation pin felt heavy against her chest now. No longer a symbol of authority, but a weight threatening to drag her under. As the flight prepared for takeoff, Patricia Langford couldn't shake the feeling that something larger than a seating arrangement had just been set in motion. She would learn soon enough. Some mistakes can't be fixed with a donor's checkbook or a board member's influence. Sometimes power itself becomes the trap that brings down those who worship it. The phones kept recording. The hashtag kept spreading. And Patricia Langford's empire began its descent before the plane even left the ground. Will her position at the Marston Foundation survive the viral storm she just created? Only time and Twitter would tell. Patricia Langford fidgets with her Marston Foundation pin, the weight of 25 years of board meetings and charity galas heavy on her silk blazer. These flights had always been her domain. First class, where connections were made, where status meant something. Now her carefully curated world begins to fray at the edges, though she doesn't recognize it yet. "I've never had to deal with this before," she whispers to Sandra, the flight attendant, her voice carrying just enough to ensure others hear. The man across the aisle, clean-cut, suit pressed to perfection, continues reading his newspaper, seemingly oblivious. But Patricia Langford knows better. She always knows better. Her phone buzzes with a message from the Foundation's PR team. "Incident report from last month's gala. Similar complaints surfacing." Patricia Langford dismisses it with a practiced flick of her wrist. Just like she dismissed the warnings from her mentor, Margaret Thorne, 30 years ago. "The world is changing, Patricia. We must adapt or fade away." The memory stings. Margaret had been wrong about so many things, but maybe... No. Patricia Langford straightens her spine, remembering the countless boardrooms where her word was law. Studies had shown, she'd commissioned them herself, that traditional values preserved order. The Marston Foundation's research department had produced a beautiful 100-page report just last year, proving her methods maintained social harmony. But now, those same research files feel like lead weights in her carry-on. Buried in footnotes and appendices, the data told a different story. Complaints rising 200% year over year. Donor demographics shifting. Younger board members pushing for reform. Patricia Langford had buried those numbers beneath glossy photos of charity events. The cabin pressure seems to drop as her phone lights up again. A video from the Palmer Institute Gala 3 months ago, herself, glass of champagne in hand, making suggestions about guest list diversity. She'd thought the recording deleted. Her fingers tremble as she declines the call from the Foundation's legal team. "Would you like another drink, Mrs. Langford?" Sandra asks, concern genuine but professional. "No, Yes, I would." Patricia Langford's hand brushes the foundation pin, its gold surface no longer gleaming. 25 years of careful image cultivation, of strategic donations and perfectly worded press releases, and now, phones record her every move. Young faces watch with knowing eyes. The world she built her empire on shifts beneath her feet. A notification pops up. "Emergency board meeting, 4 p.m. today." Her stomach lurches. The same message appeared before they ousted Richard Coleman last year, after his incident went viral. She'd voted for his removal, had called it necessary for the Foundation's image. The irony tastes bitter. "Have you watched your influence crumble?" she wants to ask the other passengers. "Have you felt your certainties dissolve like sugar in rain?" But Patricia Langford remains silent, her foundation pin now clutched in a white-knuckled grip. The man across the aisle turns a page in his newspaper. The headline catches her eye. Marston Foundation faces scrutiny over historical policies. Her legacy, reduced to black and white print, examined and found wanting by a generation that doesn't understand the natural order of things. Or perhaps, and this thought terrifies Patricia Langford more than any other, they understand it all too well. Drop 2. If you've seen someone's power start to crumble. The flight attendant's tablet chimes softly. More videos uploading. More eyes watching. More evidence of a worldview that no longer fits the world itself. Patricia Langford closes her eyes, but she can't shut out the truth anymore. Her father's voice, once a source of strength, now sounds hollow. We make the rules, Patricia. We always have. But rules, like empires, can fall. And Patricia Langford's kingdom of carefully worded exclusion begins its descent, one phone camera at a time. Officer Patricia Langford stares at her phone, her manicured fingers trembling as notification after notification floods her screen. The carefully curated LinkedIn profile she'd spent years building is now drowning under an avalanche of comments. The first-class cabin's soft lighting feels harsh and exposing, like an interrogation lamp turned on her. Each ping of her phone drives daggers of anxiety deeper. Patricia Langford refreshes her Twitter feed compulsively, watching the view count on the video climb exponentially. Her own voice, dripping with entitled venom, plays back in clips across social media platforms. The hashtag #LangfordKarma is trending, and her stomach lurches as she spots CNN's breaking news banner. Mrs. Langford? The flight attendant's voice makes her flinch. More water? Patricia Langford waves her away, unable to meet the woman's eyes. The Marston Foundation's number flashes on her screen for the 3rd time, but she can't bring herself to answer. Her pearl necklace feels like it's choking her as she watches her reputation disintegrate in real time. Across the aisle, that FBI agent sits unnervingly composed, occasionally glancing at her with knowing patience. His quiet dignity only amplifies her mounting shame. Patricia Langford's hand instinctively reaches for her Marston Foundation ID badge, the golden emblem that had always been her shield of authority. Now it feels like a brand of shame against her chest. The flight tracking display shows 3 more hours to landing. Patricia Langford's perfectly applied makeup can't hide the beads of sweat forming on her forehead as she reads an email from the Foundation's board of directors. Words like emergency meeting and public relations crisis blur before her eyes. She opens her contact list, desperate for allies, but finds only read receipts and unanswered messages. Colleagues who had laughed at her jokes yesterday are now sharing the viral video with condemning captions. Patricia Langford's carefully constructed world of influence is crumbling with each passing minute at 35,000 feet. This isn't fair, she whispers to herself, but her reflection in the darkened window tells a different story. The video has reached international news now, with translations appearing in multiple languages. Patricia Langford watches helplessly as her actions become a global symbol of entitlement and prejudice. Her hands shake as she tries to draft a statement, but every attempt reads hollow. The Marston Foundation's mission statement about equality and dignity, which she'd proudly recited countless times, now mocks her from their website's homepage. Patricia Langford deletes another futile attempt at damage control as #LangfordKarma passes 1 million mentions. A soft ding announces another email, this one from her mentor at the Foundation. The subject line alone makes her blood run cold. Disappointment doesn't begin to cover it. Patricia Langford's carefully constructed facade finally cracks as she realizes there's no coming back from this. Her power, her position, her reputation. all unraveling in the span of a single flight. The worst part isn't the viral shame or the professional suicide, it's the creeping realization that she deserves it all. Every retweet, every comment, every share strips away another layer of her self-deception. Patricia Langford clutches her badge one last time, knowing in her bones that by the time this plane lands, it will be just another piece of metal, void of all the power she once wielded so carelessly. Drop a 3 in the comments if you've ever watched someone's power crumble in real time. Gripping her designer handbag with white knuckles, Patricia Langford feels her carefully constructed world beginning to crumble. The first-class cabin's hushed atmosphere, once her domain of privilege, now feels like a closing trap. The weight of dozens of smartphones pointed in her direction makes her hands tremble, each camera lens like an accusing eye. I didn't mean, Patricia Langford stammers, her voice losing its earlier commanding tone. The FBI badge before her seems to mock everything she'd assumed about the well-dressed black man she'd so confidently confronted minutes ago. Her Marston Foundation ID card, previously displayed like a shield of authority, now feels heavy and incriminating in her blazer pocket. The flight attendant stepped back, and a wave of whispers rolled through the cabin. "Unbelievable," someone muttered near the window. "First Class Karen," a voice hissed from 2 rows back. Phones tilted up as passengers aimed for better shots. Laughter rippled through the seats, blending with the sharp snap of photos. A man near the aisle chuckled, shaking his head. "She's finished." Patricia's skin prickled under the weight of 100 watching eyes. Her world shrank to the size of that narrow aisle, and there was no way out. Through the plane's window, she catches her reflection, perfectly coiffed hair, expertly tailored suit, the image of success she'd cultivated over decades. But now, that same image is being uploaded thousands of times, captured in her moment of ultimate shame. "For the record, Mrs. Langford," Agent Stokes said, his voice calm but razor-sharp, "you demanded my removal from first class, implied I couldn't afford this seat, and said you felt unsafe. Is that right?" Patricia's mouth opened, but no words came. Agent Stokes leaned slightly forward. "Funny. You assumed everything about me, but you missed the one thing that matters." He pulled out his badge, holding it steady. "FBI. Ma'am, you just profiled a federal officer on camera." The crowd gasped. Someone whispered, "She's done." Patricia's knees almost buckled. Patricia Langford's hands shake as she reaches for her water glass, nearly knocking it over. She sees comments flooding in real time on a nearby passenger's phone. "Finally! Justice served! Watch her try to talk her way out of this one." Her carefully curated social media presence, essential for her position at the Marston Foundation, is imploding with each passing second. Comment "Justice" if you've ever witnessed privilege crumbling. The Marston Foundation prides itself on diversity and inclusion, Patricia Langford whispers, her practiced PR voice failing her. But the words sound hollow even to her own ears. She remembers the Foundation's board meeting just yesterday, where she'd proudly presented their public image campaign. The irony crushes her. A chime sounds from multiple phones. #first class. Karen has hit trending status. Patricia Langford watches her own face, contorted with earlier prejudice, appear on screen after screen. Major news networks are picking up the story. Her phone buzzes. The Marston Foundation's CEO is calling. She lets it go to voicemail, knowing what's coming. "Mrs. Langford," Agent Stokes states calmly, "I suggest you return to your seat. We can discuss this further with airline authorities upon landing." The The same authority she'd tried to deny him now radiates from every word. Each step back to her seat feels like walking through quicksand. Patricia Langford's Marston Foundation ID card slips from her pocket, clattering to the floor. A perfect symbolic finale for the videos still recording. She leaves it there, knowing she'll never need it again. The remaining hours of the flight pass in excruciating silence, broken only by notification sounds as the incident spreads across social media. Patricia Langford watches her reputation, career, and carefully constructed worldview disintegrate at 35,000 feet. She compulsively checks her phone, watching #first-class Karen climb Twitter's trending list, accompanied by calls for her resignation. Share this moment of accountability with your followers if you believe in justice. Her earlier demands echo in her mind, each one now a nail in her professional coffin. The Marston Foundation's mission statement, "Building Bridges Across Communities," scrolls past in a Twitter comment, paired with her viral photo. The irony would be delicious if it weren't so devastating. As the plane begins its descent, Patricia Langford drafts and deletes resignation emails, knowing the Foundation's board won't wait for her to make the decision. The weight of consequences settles over her like a heavy blanket, and for the first time, she faces the truth of who she really is and who she needs to become. Taking flight over Manhattan, Patricia Langford stared at her phone's screen, watching her life unravel in a stream of notifications. The footage of her confrontation with FBI Agent Stokes had surged past 10 million views, each share driving another nail into her carefully constructed facade. Her manicured fingers, once steady at charity galas and board meetings, trembled as she scrolled through the comments. The Marston Foundation's sleek offices, her sanctuary for 15 years, now felt like a mausoleum. Her designer handbag, the same one she'd wielded like a weapon on that fateful flight, sat deflated beside her desk, a reminder of her spectacular fall. The morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the empty space where her accolades had hung just yesterday. "Mrs. Langford?" Her assistant's voice wavered. "The board is ready for you." Patricia Langford smoothed her silk blouse, muscle memory from countless power moves that now felt hollow. The Marston Foundation boardroom, once her arena of triumph, stretched before her like an execution chamber. 12 faces, familiar yet foreign, watched her approach. The chairman's expression carried the weight of institutional damage control. "The footage speaks for itself," she heard herself say, her voice smaller than she'd ever allowed it to be. "My actions were—" The carefully rehearsed statement crumbled. In its place, something raw emerged. "I've become everything I claimed to fight against." The leather portfolio, her constant companion at board meetings, lay open before her. Inside, the resignation letter waited, typed on expensive stationery that now felt like sandpaper under her fingertips. The hashtag #LangfordLegacy continued trending, transforming her family's 3 generations of philanthropic work into a cautionary tale. Her Mont Blanc pen, a gift from the board on her 10th anniversary, felt leaden as she signed. Each stroke of her signature erased another piece of her carefully constructed world. The Foundation's mission statement hung on the wall behind her. "Building bridges, breaking barriers." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Type "change" if you believe transformation starts with accountability, scrolled across millions of screens as her resignation announcement went live. Later, alone in her Upper East Side apartment, Patricia Langford watched CNN dissect her downfall. Her phone buzzed with another notification. Agent Stokes had released a statement calling for reflection, not retribution. His grace made her shame burn deeper. The antique mirror in her foyer, a family heirloom that had witnessed 3 generations of Langford women, reflected a stranger. "Power without purpose is poison," she whispered to her reflection, understanding finally reaching her core. Her grandmother's voice echoed from memory. "Our name means nothing if we don't lift others up." Outside, New York continued its eternal pulse, indifferent to her personal apocalypse. The viral moment had transformed into something larger, a conversation about privilege, power, and prejudice. Patricia Langford's name would become a reference point, a case study in how quickly certainty could crumble into clarity. Share this story if you believe every fall can teach us how to rise differently, became the final viral call in her narrative. Her society friends had gone silent. Her carefully curated contact list remained dark. But in the quiet of her defeat, Patricia Langford found something she'd never expected. The truth about herself, laid bare in millions of views and thousands of comments. Sometimes, she realized, you have to lose everything to see what you never had. The sun set over Manhattan, painting the sky in colors that cared nothing for human hierarchies. Tomorrow, her name would be removed from the foundation's letterhead. But tonight, in the wreckage of her reputation, Patricia Langford finally understood. True legacy isn't built on power, but on the humanity we show when that power slips away.